Welcome YouTube, welcome to another video. I always do the intros that's exactly the same, don't I? But today's video, we have actually MOT'd the Subaru. It's taxed, insured, MOT'd, and we're actually out on the road having a bit of a blast with it. So what today's video is really about is the car's actually up for sale. So some of you follow me on Instagram and Facebook and stuff, they will have seen the advert for the car about a month ago now, I think it was. But I thought I should put a bit of a video together going over the car, and if you're looking at the advert, one of the adverts, you maybe watch this video and you get a bit of an overview, do you know, of the car. It's always good to see videos over pictures, because pictures can lie sometimes. So yeah, I'm just going to get straight into it. We've just been doing some nice 11s down the street. Because the gearbox failed again at York, Elvington, the drag strip with Dan. If you don't know, obviously you won't know on YouTube, but I went to a little bit of an event, like a Santa Pod was having an event, and it was at Santa Pod and at York Drag Strip.
Time attack car in the left-hand lane.
And I went with one of my friends to set up the launch control ready for Quick 60, which is actually happening today. Not when you're watching this video, but when I'm filming it. So we haven't made it to the Quick 60, but we've fixed all the gearbox again, another fourth gear, and it's back together. I've reduced a bit of torque out of it, which I think is not helping things, but yeah, let's get into it anyway. Let's have a look around the car. I've come to a little quiet spot, or so I thought, and it appears just the whole motorway's worth of traffic is actually coming down this road, so it's not actually a quiet spot. And the heavens have just opened up, looks absolutely lovely up there, so the car's going to get a little bit wet. So yeah, where's best place to start? I think the fact that it's got an MOT on it now. Some people, I put it up on Instagram the other day and everyone was like, what the fuck, how have you managed that? But I've basically retrofitted back all of the stuff that I ripped out. Let me pan out, it might be 1 second. You can see a little bit better now. So I've retrofitted a little screen wash bottle, 500ml capacity, little water pump there, and then I've got one washer jet. I've blocked that one off because we've only got one wiper. Weight saving in that, bro. And what else have we put? Put a little horn down there because it didn't have a horn, so we've got a little horn down there. Reg plate, all important front reg plate, and then just new side lights, new headlight bulbs, because one of the LED little strips inside one of the bulbs had blown. You can see that in there. Yes, new side light bulbs, new headlight bulbs. Indicators never worked, so I've actually had to retrofit the whole indicator system. I'd cut all the relays out and everything, so I've made a little carbon bracket there. You can just see it. See a bit better there, maybe. And it's now got hazards all working on the dash. And then obviously your indicators, I'd left that there. But trying to think what else we've fitted in here. Oh, we fitted a horn on this side. Let me go on the other side. We fitted a horn this side. Nice little carbon panel. It used to have the OBD port in here, but obviously that's abundant, you know, we don't need that anymore. So, little horn. We've got the rear fog lights, because it's you got to have it for MOT. And let me flick the main lights on. Put the main headlights on. All the lights work on the dash. The correct mileage is displayed on the dash, courtesy of Race Technologies. So, show you the lights. All the lights are working, high beam and low beam. Let me do the high beam. There's a high beam. So it's got bi-xenon projectors in it, so they're... I know this is not relevant because it's a race car, but bi-xenon projectors that side and then high beam bulb in that side as well. Let me shut this because it's really raining now. The indicators there, rear lights, it's got the JDM rear lights on it. And I'll put this fog light on. Fog light, working fog light there. And it's even got, most of you'll know this, but they did a video on it, but it's even got a catalytic converter in the back. GoPro mount, of course. Oh, that was the other thing. I fitted some reg plate lights you can just see there. It's not in full time attack gears, time attack spec at the minute, because we've actually got the passenger seat in. But everything else is in place. It's normally got the little child's go-kart seat in there. Let me turn those off. Turn those off. Still got the Accu sump. We've got the Accu sump gauge there, AFR gauge, all your various boost settings. So Cal 1 is full power, 700 horsepower, just shy. Cal 2 is minimum boost power, so I'll put it up in the screen, but I think it's about 480, something like that. And then it goes up incrementally in about 40 or 50 horsepower increments. And then number 5 and number 6 are the same number as number 1, which is the same as when you press that button there. And the little P comes on the left-hand side of the screen to show you that you're in full power mode. Number 6 is the same as 5 and 1, but with anti-lag. But I've just been running it in 2 or 3 most of the time. But this little gauge here is after the turbo temperature. So as the air comes out of the turbo before the intercooler, that's the temperature there. So like pre-cooled air. Just so you know when it's getting up to like 160, 180 or whatever, you want to come out of the throttle basically. This is an AFR gauge. There's one of 2. The other one goes into the ECU. ECU is Cyvex, and that is, can't see it, but it's just there. This is the lead to connect to the ECU to do all the tunings. Someone had a really nice induction kit on the Corsa there. Stock 6-speed. Well, stock. It's got a billet selector finger in it. RCM gear knob. Nice little touch. Intercom. We've got the intercom there. You push the button, push to talk. That's all connected through there with the aerial on the boot. GoPro mount. 6-point harnesses on the RS2 Mako seat. 6-point harness in the passenger side. Both TRS. One's a hands one, one's a normal passenger one. Hands one's got the thinner straps. And what else? Carbon doors. 4mm polycarbonate windows. The little carbon tabs there to go under. Rear doors. Carbon. Kevlar lined. Had to cut them out. Time attack. One of their lovely rolls. Fuel filler. Fuel goes in there. You can see. It's like the OEM Subaru sort of setup. Boots on quick release. Pins. The whole thing comes off, lifts off. I'll just show you underneath if it'll let me. There's the fuel filler and the boot floor and anti-roll bar and goodies under there. Sorry about that. I just had to nip in the car and move because it just started absolutely battering it down. So it seems to have held up, stopped a bit now, but we've got a bit of coverage under some trees, so we should be all right. Yeah, whereabouts were we? I think we were underneath here somewhere. 24mm white line rear anti-roll bar. The white line HD mounts. There's the fuel filler neck, as you can see, going to the tank. Tank is a half fuel tank, cut in half, and then we've got the Surge tank, 2.5 litre one there. I'll go underneath so I can show you that a bit better in a minute, but 2 fuel pumps on the front of that feeding the engine bay. We've got the hard race control arms, both sides, the hard race lateral arms going from the hubs forward, spherical hard race mounts on the hubs, and Bowler S55 aerospace grade drive shafts. Yeah, I can't really get a good shot of the fuel system, but you can just see it there. I think the two fuel pumps and then the 2.5 litre Surge tank. It's cut out to clear the control arms there, you can see. And I think you can just see the half tank. Yeah, it'd be ideal if I had the ramp and the unit back now. I could put it up on the ramp and show you underneath a bit better, like. But whilst we're at the back here, we've got the Jap Speed big gear wing. I've not got much angle of attack. It's pretty shallow, but it's got these additional areas, do you know, like the touring car sort of setup. So where it's in the clean air, the angle of attack is slightly higher. It's got carbon fibre support rods that I've made, support rods for the end plates that I've made. Well, there's no point in me saying I made because I've made the whole thing, but little gurney flaps. I don't know what they are, maybe 8mm or something. Little gurney flaps, maybe 10mm, probably too big. Just on the end plates there. Needs a gurney flap on the rear wing really, but never got around to it. There's the aerial for the intercom, just there. Alloy uprights, polycarbonate rear window, carbon roof from Clint. Clint gave me this because it had a little bit of a defect here. I don't know if you can see it. Just had a little bit of a defect, so he gave me it at a good price, shall we say. Some little vortex generators, probably don't need them. 4mm polycarbonate rear windows, 4mm polycarbonate front windows. Can't remember who these were from. If you look back through one of my videos, you'll see. But it's got the little slider in there, and the support struts that you don't actually need because they've got these carbon tabs now. WRC mirrors, carbon mirrors. A touch on the doors. The doors are actually, the back ones are one-piece carbon. So Kevlar, sorry about all the traffic. It's even worse than the last place. Yeah, carbon foam core with carbon Kevlar reinforcement on the back, and then the polycarbonate windows with these little tabs, you know, to secure the window tops. But the front ones are actually hybrid. So back ones are 3.5 kilos. I think, if I remember right. Front ones are about 5.5, I think, 6. They actually retain the steel inside, you know, for a bit of integrity. And then door cards, because that was one of the regulations, you had to have a door card. But it actually retains all of the lock mechanism, so all the lock still works, you know, works with the key inside. So you can actually lock just this driver's door if you want to. Yeah. Front window, I didn't touch on that earlier, but front window is a Ricky Evans dual element heated screen because we've took all the heating, you know, the fan controls out of the car. So that's actually just on a little switch here. I've just put the ignition on so you can see that, but the little D lights up, you know, so you can tell when you've left it on, so you don't leave it in the pits like someone may have done and drained the battery, hence the light. Speaking of batteries, I'll show you that, but firstly, we've got the aero catches, proper ones, not Chinese ones. The Chinese ones fall apart, just for reference. Yeah, aero catches, some Chinese vents to let some of the pressure out, a carbon scoop, reverse scoop that I've made. It's a bit dirty, very dirty, but lets the hot air and some of the pressure, some of the high pressure out, slow moving air. So we're going to that stock bonnet because it's aluminium, so it's light anyway. I've just had to cut a bit of a recess there for the radiator that I've moved. That I'll explain in a minute. But yeah, battery is a Exide ELT X20H, is it? It's a moped battery. It's lithium, weighs 1.3 kilos. It's mega. That goes to a big isolation switch there, which is another one of the regs that you've got to have. Showed you that. Where should we go next? Tell you what, we'll continue on from the fuel system. So fuel system comes through from the two pumps I showed you a second ago. That comes through in AN8 PTFE through the bulkhead there, and it comes through to a radium glass, you know, glass, I can't think of the thing. It's 6 micron glass tissue, you know, element in there. So it's suitable for all fuels basically. Then we come from there in AN8, you can just see it, comes round to here, comes to an AN8 to AN6 split. Then we go AN6 feeding both the front of the rails. The rails are Torx billet rails. They've got ID 1700 XDS injectors connected to the underside of them, and they're feeding into, I'll put a picture in the screen, but these are one of the original things that I did, but some custom ported. I spent hours porting and polishing the TGVs. They're just WRX TGVs. I've taken all the motors out of them, blanked all the holes, and then polished them all, as you'll see in the screen somewhere here. Yeah, anyway, off the back of the rails, we're coming back to the RCM fuel pressure regulator, and then that feeds back AN6 straight to the tank in PTFE again. We've got a fuel pressure gauge, so you can see the static pressure there and set that up. We've got a fuel pressure gauge feeding the ECU for the login. And that's it for the fuel side of things. Regulator is fed from the side of the inlet manifold here, as you can see. So engine really next, engine, the heart of the beast. So it's a EJ20 closed deck block, the actual casing. If you're obviously following my videos, you will have seen this and you will know all this, but I just want to sort of combine it all into one video so it's there. So EJ20 closed deck block, one of the original version 1, version 2 Impreza engines. So it's had all the required work done, the rear, the rear main, the bearing conversion, the clearance machined out of it for the con rods because it's 2.1, so it's a 2.1 stroker, and it's had the oil squirters blocked off and 14mm conversion, the holes enlarged from 11mm, 12mm, whatever they are factory, to 14mm. Then in the heads, the appropriate 14mm holes, drilled through into those as well. And then we've got 2.5 crank, nitride treated crank. We've got Marl Cleveite mains on the crank to casing bearings. We've got Marl Motorsport bearings on the mains, the con rods to the journals on the crankshaft. And then we've got, those are connected to, I was going to say Manley, but that was on the old engine. So these are actually on Carrillo rods now. And then on top of the Carrillo rods, we've got 93mm Marl Motorsport 2618 pistons. And I can put all the spec, obviously if someone requires all the specification that I built the engine to, it's all on YouTube initially, but it's a bit too detailed to go into for this video, I think. But I've got it all written down, big massive folder of paperwork like that. But yeah, that's the short block. Then we've got the heads, which are SMG. They've had the SMG valve seat job done on them and a mild port. We've got, connected to those, we've got the Spec C RA Hawkeye camshafts, and we've got Supertech exhaust valves, not on the inlet, they're still stock Subaru, and Supertech buckets with the shims that you connect underneath the bottom. That's it, I think. On the top, we've got a little Bachelor Racing fuel filler neck, because to clear all this. Moving a little further forward to the front of the engine, so we've got the stock AVCS inlet pulleys. We've got RCM billet exhaust pulleys on both sides, because the stock Bakelite ones they go brittle and they're old now. So you can just see sneakily in there, it's got the RCM high grip tensioner. Do you know, the all ready for a sequential setup, believe it or not. But yeah, RCM high grip tensioner. It's got an RCM front, the little, I'll put it in the screen, the picture of the front of the whole front system there, but the little billet timing belt cover that goes on there. It's got a Go Fast Bits billet front pulley, aluminium front pulley, stock Subaru alternator there, Spec C power steering pump, and a Spec C quick rack, and also the Spec C Hawkeye corresponding front subframe. Oil control and Killer B bits. We've got a Killer B high flow thermostat, water pump inlet there. Then going to sort of a custom pipework to the front radiator, which I'll move on to in a minute. But we'll talk about the oil control system first. So pictures in the screen again. We've got Killer B, Super G sump, their baffle plate, their high flow pickup pipe, and then we've got the twin scroll dipstick, which is important. So you're measuring the correct level of oil. They're all the same dipstick tubes, but it's got a new dipstick tube on it. Then to accompany that Killer B, which I've extensively gone into, and I highly recommend, the Killer B oil control valve, which works hand in hand with the sump. So that's connected to both the heads, one side there and the other side going to the head here, and then the top of that valve goes out to the oil catch can, which I've moved from the back there to here so that I could do a return to sump setup, which I have done now, which is this is the center crank breather feeding the oil catch can. But can you see that little orange pipe down there? That actually returns back to the factory turbo oil return, because obviously the factory turbo's here. So that just goes straight into there. So you've got no messing about with emptying oil catch cans or anything anymore. So other than the Accu sump, which I've touched on, the Accu sump's underneath the bulkhead, that's it oil control system wise. The Accu sump feeds off the bottom of the oil pump. You can't see the line, you can just see the line. It's just here, this line here, and that feeds back to the Accu sump. One more thing on the oil system, we've got the Fuji oil pressure extension, which comes from just underneath the alternator down there. You can just see it down there. That comes up, goes round the back of the alternator, and then we've got the oil pressure sensor that feeds the ECU, all important one there, and the stock oil pressure sensor, which works actually on the dash. I've actually scaled everything so that it works still. Underneath that, we've got the Mac 3-port boost solenoid, which is feeding a GFB EX44 wastegate, which I'll put another picture in the screen, and it's got a nice little Funk Motorsport turbo blanket on it. Wastegate blanket, sorry. And also we've got Funk Motorsport turbo blanket. Can you see the little label just underneath there? We've got that on the turbo. Oh yeah, final thing on oil. We're measuring oil temperature just there as well. That feeds back to the ECU, and it also feeds into the dash, because the dash has got separate logging. So if for any reason the ECU stops logging or anything, the dash has got a larger memory than the ECU, and it'll log all of the parameters that the ECU measures. And I've got it all manually scaled in there. It doesn't bring it through CAN from the ECU. It's all independently scaled into the dash. So we've got map sensor, which is a Omni 4-bar map sensor, 3 up, 1 down, and that feeds into the dash. So you've got boost pressure. What else feeds into the dash? We've got oil temperature, oil pressure, Accu sump pressure. I've got another pressure sensor on there, and a few other bits anyway. The other thing I monitor is gearbox oil temperature. You can just see, let me zoom in, you can just see down there I've got an oil temperature sensor going into the return from the gearbox oil cooler, which is sat in between the intercooler and the radiator, like in the side there. I'll put a picture in the screen, but that just sends the gearbox oil temperature back into the ECU so that you can log that as well. Apologies if it's a bit all over this video, but there's a lot. I'm trying to go as methodically as I can, but there's obviously a lot to go through. Yeah, I'm sure you can appreciate that. So, cooling system, we've got Bachelor Racing cap on there, because the stock ones they're brazed on and they're renowned for leaking. So that's just all the stock pipework going into it, stock crossover. I've extended the stock crossover, and I've extended the bottom pipe on the radiator down there, because most of you'll know, but I've had to move the radiator forward around sort of 100mm, 75mm, whatever it was at the time, to allow me to squeeze this Pulsar G35 900. That's got a 4-inch intake, I think it is. That's going down to a K&N induction kit, which is, can we see that? I've never looked. Yeah, just there. That is the K&N attached to the end of that pipework. So, and then that goes out to all of the custom. I've got a custom downpipe, and I'll put some pictures of the underneath of the car. But a custom downpipe which goes the opposite way to what most Subarus would go. Most Subarus would go obviously down that way. So because of that, that caused a lot of issues, clearance issues. I've had to take a little bit off the front subframe. I've had to have a custom T45 middle gearbox cradle subframe made up because obviously the hoop is on the wrong side, to clear the downpipe. So that's the downpipe. It's all pie cut right the way back to the sort of middle of the car, and then it just has a generic like sort of Jap speed back system from there, and then a 100 cell sports cat in the back, obviously. So the wastegate, because of time attack regs again, I'd like to have put this straight to the floor or straight out of the bonnet, but it has to be recirculated for noise reasons, so that actually recirculates back into the downpipe. We've got the AFR gauge sensor, the lower one, and the wideband for the Civex Lambda going into there. And then the custom headers that I made, which are actually made from RCM headers, if you remember on the channel, and I cut them up and remade them all into the headers that they are today to suit the front mount turbo setup, which is connected via V-band. So we've just got a G35 900 style V-band joint connecting the turbo to the headers. We've got the same V-band, it's bigger, but the same V-band going straight onto the 3-inch downpipe, straight off the turbo there. And going through the middle of it all, we've got the turbo oil return pipe going into the front of the sump. Again, I'll put a picture in the screen, but you can just see the pipe. Can you see it? That black pipe just there. Zoom in, if it will. Just that one there in the centre of the screen now. So that feeds back into the sump from the turbo. Then we've got the feed coming from the stock location, which is just there. Can we see that? It's got the restrictor built into it. It's on the same feed, oil feed, as the AVCS solenoid feeds on there. And then I've made a little hanger just to support the weight of the turbo, because I don't want the headers cracking, and it seems to have held up pretty well. You know, there's not been any cracking issues, and that just bolts to where, I don't even know what went here, maybe something AC related, but I just made this little bracket, and it's just on a little rose joint hanger just straight onto the headers into the where the original Lambda used to go in, believe it or not. I've done from the turbo, I've gone on a Wiggins connector, which I'll put a picture in the screen, going off the bottom of the turbo because I had issues with them overheating and the silicon couplings coming off. So we've put an aircraft Wiggins connector on there now, and I've not had any issues since. So that comes off really short pipe work. It just does a U-turn, goes round to there, and that feeds it's a Jap speed bar and plate intercooler, and it's always been spot on. You know, it's been pretty efficient. It's a decent core size, 2.5-inch inlets I think they've got on them, both sides, inlet and outlet. So then the other side of the intercooler pipework comes round, goes up through, can we see it? Yeah, just there, comes through that bit there, and then goes round and into the throttle body. Throttle body stock WRX one actually. I think they're all the same, WRX STI. And that's got a tile. It's not actually a tile, it's actually a China special, but it's been on the car for 5 years, and other than me having to change an O-ring when I first got it and debar it, you know, on the inside, it's been absolutely flawless. It worked perfectly. Sounds pretty good as well. So yep, that's that. We've got the stock overflow tank for the coolant system, which is important on these. We've got the stock Subaru cap, the right cap for the front radiator, stock Subaru cap on there, the right cap again, a two-way and a one-way. So that's the coolant system, just some silicone hoses throughout everywhere. Obviously the heater matrix is not there anymore, so those pipes are capped. We've got the RCM cylinder 4 coolant mod on there. You'll probably know what that is if you're looking into these, but you can just see it's just a RCM little billet T-piece. Do you know? Let me zoom in. You can just see it there, little T-piece, and go into the back of the block, and then just taps into the coolant system there. Radiator, stock Subaru, just completely factory Subaru radiator. No issues with overheating. It was actually used to get hotter when the turbo was in the stock location. And I mean, I don't know how, but you would have thought moving the turbo closer to the radiator, it would, you know, you'd have heat issues. But the radiator, the engine runs cooler than it did on the previous setup. So we've got the radiator there, stock radiator, custom built like front subframe, oil cooler, 13 row Merkel, which comes off a thermostatic plate underneath the engine and on the oil filter housing. And then in front of that there is the gearbox oil cooler, which is a little, I think it's a 10 row oil cooler that goes just behind the intercooler. And then we've got the intercooler. So then on the front of that, we've got a carbon front bumper that I've made. That's a couple of kilos, I think it is, can't remember. Little carbon plate here that I've made just to incorporate sort of the, you know, bring the front end back together, because I've had to chop this out to clear the radiator, make this little sort of bracket, you know, to give it a bit of strength. Then we've got stock fuse box there, stock ABS pump with the biasing valve, the stock one. The ABS doesn't work. It worked in the old car, but I've just left it all in. So it could probably do to be deleted to save a bit of weight, but it's never bothered me. So maybe you could get it working again if you did a bit of fancy wiring, but they're renowned for not being very good anyway, so I just left it deactivated. Stock power steering pump, a WRX one, not an STI one, because the STI one has a different spout off the bottom, which comes through to an oil cooler, but I didn't have clearance, you know, to put the STI one in. Then that's got custom AN pipes going up to the Spec power steering pump. And then all that's just OEM. I think I've had to adapt a few little pipes, but mostly OEM. Wings are carbon foam core. This was one of the first things that I did along with the doors, but I overkilled them. They're, I think, about 1.4 kilos, something like that. They're pretty light, but they're foam core and they're far too strong. They don't need to be that strong. I mean, it's not a bad thing, but yeah, I did them a bit too much overkill, so you put all your body weight on them. And then what you're not seeing at the minute is it's normally got a front splitter that goes on. It's a carbon one with tunnels in it, and then it has some carbon support rods that come down here, which finishes the car off. But as a road car, it sticks out too far and it catches on every bump, so it's a no-go. It's just a track only. And then on the flip side to that, it's a must on the track because it improves the front end turning. You know, it balances the car out with the rear wing, obviously. Headlights, we've already touched on them. Wheels, we've got two Forge ZF5s. They're 10-inch wide, ET20, and they're coupled with, they sit on top of some 356mm K Sports, and they've got Pagid RST3 pads in them. And then ball joints, we've got the hard race roll centre correction ball joints and hard race roll centre correction track rod ends. That's again going on to the Spec quick throw, you know, the short rack. And then connected to that, stock 5B100 WRX hubs and bearings. Then we've got the white line 27mm front anti-roll bar, some Melee HD drop links, and BC ZR suspension, which is three-way adjustable. So we've got the rebound adjustment on the bottom, and then we've got the external reservoirs with the high-speed adjustment on the outside, low-speed adjustment on the inside. So they're connected to the car on the BC Max Caster top mounts, pillow ball top mounts, and they actually give much more adjustment to be able to bring the, you know, rather than just having caster adjustment, they've got camber adjustment, sorry, they've got caster adjustment as well. So you can actually max the caster out, you know, pull the suspension where the mounting point at the top is back to increase the caster, you know, increase the sort of that caster. Whilst we're talking about caster, we've got White Line's anti-lift kit, which increases the caster. At the back of the control arms, the front control arms, we've got stock new age alloy control arms on the bottom. Another thing that has just come to mind whilst we're here is gearbox pitch mount. I've got a billet pitch mount just there. As I said, stock TY856 WB 6CA, I think it is, gearbox 6-speed, which is a Spec C RA gearbox, which is, I didn't buy it at the same time as the car, but it's nice that it's got, you know, the matching gearbox, not the matching gearbox for the year of the car, but it's got the matching gearbox for the car, do you know what I mean? I think the one that came in this actual car was a 1CA, But anyway, I'm rambling, I'm going off on one. But connected between the engine and the gearbox, we've got an extreme 230mm twin 6-puck unsprung clutch, and that's been in for about, all basically since I built the last engine, so not the last engine, the first engine. So it's been in 4 years, and I've put a set of clutch plates on it, and that's it. It's been flawless. You know, it doesn't obviously get as much hammer on a circuit setup as it does for like launching or street driving, but yeah, it's been fantastic. It's got a nice eBay strut brace as well. I thought I'd just leave that in here because it tidied it up, you know, finished off the look of things. But yeah, it's only a cheap one. I think I powder coated these back in the day, you know, the mounts. Interestingly enough, the cage is a T45 custom cages, and that does actually tie into the strut towers. It comes through the bulkhead and ties into the strut towers. It doesn't on that side because I've obviously kept the brake booster. So, final couple of bits as we go inside. It's got as I just said, the custom cage is T45 cage, so it's nice and light. I think it's 48 kilos for the whole cage, and it's 16 or 18 point, you know, FIA approved full cage. You can see it looks a bit excessive there, but it's all there for safety. So that ties into the front little like gusset things going into the A-pillar. You can see, always looks cool when it's got the little holes running down the front windscreen. You can see there, and I added these little you know, support things. The final thing, I just want to show you the dash and go through a couple of bits, you know, on the dash. Oh yeah, and the Accusump's there, and the control valve for it is just there. It's manual because I don't want electric because it could fail. So I've just got, you just literally do that with your foot, just as you're going out on circuit, and then obviously rev it up and turn it off just as you're coming back in. So it's like really good as a pre-oiler as well. I use it every time I start it. You know, that's when the damage is done to the engine. Oh yeah, we've got a footrest and we've got a fire extinguisher. So that's the latest spec, 2.25 litre I think it is, foam. Latest spec as of last year, that is. So yeah, that's that there. Just wanted to show you in the back as well, so you can see the a bit of the cage and a bit of the extent to the lightning of the chassis. All of the you know, sort of parcel shelf has been cut out, and then holes everywhere, lightning holes all across the back. You can see, and it's actually got one of Clint's boot floors in as well. I know it was pretty simple to make, but at the time it was in the old WRX chassis. Clint offered me a good price and I bought one of his boot floors off him. So we've got another GoPro mount up there as well. You can just see there, in case you want some rear shots. And that's the GoPro mount for the front. We've got various bits and bobs here. We've got the top of the surge tank, the return from the engine in PTFE, and we've got the feed coming from the fuel pumps underneath, and then all the power, you know, nice big fat power cable coming to feed the relays, and then both your fuses for your fuel pumps independently wired, and that goes through and feeds, you know, obviously down there. I never actually mentioned the when we were talking about the cage, I never actually mentioned the whole chassis is seam welded, stitch welded. So it's stitch welded, every single panel, you know, is stitch welded together. So I can show you underneath. You can probably best see it on these sort of areas, but I'll show you some pictures underneath the car, you know, when it was all at that stage. But it's not a road car that's been modified to be a race car. It's a ground up build. You know, you'll know this if you've been watching the channel, but it's yeah, I've built it from nothing up to what it is. So the final thing that I wanted to show you was the dash and the operation of it. So I'll flick the ignition on, zoom in. So we've got various different screens that you can set up. You can do this all on the laptop. So this is the actual dash. It's a Dash 2 Pro. so which means it's got all the built-in logging and GPS. It's got a GPS antenna up on the roof, up there, it's just on top of there. So it's really accurate, really mega bit of kit, you know, especially with the age of it. I don't know when they first came out, but they used a lot on aerial atoms and stuff like that, you know, originally. So you've got your 4 buttons, menu, set, and then up and down on this side. And then I've actually wired in everything so that it still works. So you've got your factory oil light here. You've got the engine management light, which I don't actually know if that still works. It did work on the stock ECU, but I don't think it works on with the Civex. We've got your low fluid level, which comes on bright at 5 litres. And then next to that is the immobiliser light, which obviously that did work on the stock ECU, but it doesn't have an immobiliser anymore. So on the dash itself, we've got your RPM lights here, which are progressive. You can change these to do whatever you want, but they're green and then they flash red. We've got fuel level, which I've scaled accurately. It's very accurate, down to like, you know, 100 mil. And this is your water temperature. You've got your mileage, your odometer there, and then that's the mileage on the car at the minute, 49,238. And then this is your trip, when you can reset your trip. I can't remember which buttons you press, but so then you've got RPM, gear, and at the minute, because it's cool, it has a different RPM gauge for the limiter that I've set in the ECU, and of the limiter that I've set on the dash. Until it gets up to 60 degrees, you won't see the full RPM, you know, gauge. So you can go through and scroll through the various different screens, and it's got different things on different screens. So here it's got AccuSump pressure, oil temperature and water in the big screen, boost, lambda, intake air temps. Again, AccuSump, oil temp, boost. It just depends what you want, you know, on the screen. AccuSump, boost, and RPM. What's the last one? Is that back to screen 1? There's only one with the fuel on. I just normally leave it on that. You've got your signal up here for your GPS as well, which is pretty much always full. As I said, it's not a metal roof, so it doesn't seem to interfere much. It's carbon roof, so it gets a nice good signal. We've got your mirror there, stock mirror, stock WRX mirror, good old mirror. But yeah, that's everything. I think the heater panels are still in place, but you could probably do to cut that off, because these are obviously abundant. But obviously I did leave it in the car originally in the WRX this was in, so it served its purpose. All the heaters still worked and everything. So oh yeah, steering wheel. I didn't mention that. So it's got a Driftworks 350mm basic steering wheel, and that's connected to a NRG. I think it's NRG Slimline Boss, and it's at a nice place, you know, a nice sort of distance from the driver, and it's still got its adjustability. So if you pull this down, you can lift up and down the steering wheel. Not much, but it's nice just to have that little bit of adjustability. And stock pedal box. I was going to put a pedal box in, but I thought keep it OEM and what I'm used to. So yeah, stock clutch pedal, stock brake, stock accelerator pedal. And this little wire here, this little extension wire, it goes to the push to pass, which does that. You know, I've already showed you that, but it does the full power mode. One thing that's missing from this that will come with it, but obviously doesn't in the road setup, is the time attack, you know, the rain light that goes in the back there, and it's got like a little carbon panel with holes cut in it for letting the airflow out. I'll put a picture in the screen of that, but yeah, it's obviously I've got to put this on and I can't have the rain light on at the same time. So yeah, that's everything. I think, well, there's one more thing, and that is the trailer. The trailer's available for sale as well. I'll put a picture in the screen, but it's a Woodford WBT 131, and it's a low profile car transporter with a tilt bed, and it's basically set for this car. There's another couple of bits like the cover that it all kind of goes together. So the trailer goes is meant for the car, and the cover is a bespoke cover. I'll put a picture of that in the screen as well. Shout out to my mum. She made all that actually, and yeah, that's bespoke, made for this car and that trailer. It all connects together, sort of thing. So in an ideal world, it would all go together, but this sale is for the car. If you want the trailer, we can organise, we can talk about that as well. There's another few bits, specific tooling and stuff, and prototype doors that I've got to go with the car. But like sill stands, it's got sill stands that go with it, for when you're working on it, and a couple of other specific tools, here and there, and spares, drive shafts and stuff like that. But yeah, that's covers everything on the car. I think I'm no doubt we'll have forgotten something. Yeah, probably quite important things like what fuel it runs on. So the fuel I run it on is 50% whatever petrol you like, so SO, Shell V-Power, whatever, and the other 50% is bioethanol for your fireplace, what you'd run your inside fireplace on. And you can get that, this is the main reason I run it on it, you can get it on eBay, or you can go and collect it from Sheffield. It's nice and easy, and then just mix it myself 50-50 by volume. And other things like the rear brakes. So the rear brakes are 330mm, the K-Sport 4 pots, and they've got Padgett RST4 pads in them. But yeah, if you want to know any more, drop me a message on any of the socials, comment on this video, give me a call, whatever. I'll have a chat to you about it. But it's a shame to see the car go, but I think I've had my fun out of it. I've done what I want with it, and on to the next thing, basically. Oh yeah, what's the price? That's probably just a small, important thing. So the price for the car is 35,000, and then obviously we can discuss the trailer on top of that. But yeah, I think that is bang on the money and where it wants to be. And if you followed the videos and followed everything, you'll probably be thinking that's a steal, for the level, the extent of work that's gone on. But yeah, that sums this video up really. I'd just like to say thanks to all the sponsors and everyone that's been involved in the car, all the way through, and helped me achieve what I have with it. I've had a brilliant time. I've had some not so good times, as you will have seen, but I've also had some fantastic times. So yeah, onwards and upwards. If you want to carry on following, there'll be no doubt Subaru content, in the future, and then other bits and bobs to what I'm going to be going on to next. But other than that, take it easy, and thanks for the support throughout, everyone.